Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, the president had big news to begin the week, finally taking a stand against the Russian energy sector. Talk a little bit about what happened.
Absolutely. So earlier this week, Biden announced a ban on all Russian imports of oil, gas, and coal, which are obviously all their natural energy imports. This was a pretty big symbolic blow to Russia and comes as Russia escalates its invasion of Ukraine, including just mass civilian casualties and really stepping up the assault on Kiev and other major cities.
So in this case, the White House ended up sort of preempting a move in Congress toward passing legislation along these lines and kind of got out in front of that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There was actually momentum, bipartisan momentum, rarely, in both the House and the Senate. The Senate had announced legislation to ban Russian oil imports on Thursday last week, and Nancy Pelosi had announced that the House was going to take up something to that effect as well, which it actually passed this week.
So, in addition to blaming Vladimir Putin for the price increases we're seeing at the pump and high energy costs, and sort of the social media campaign of the Putin price hike, the oil companies and the energy companies have kind of been fingered by the White House as a culprit in all of this, but they're pushing back. The industry's pushing back. Describe that a little bit.
They are. So I spoke to some folks this week who basically told me they felt that it was deeply incongruous, the messaging they've seen from the administration. Basically, we saw this week in announcing the ban, Biden said, the administration has just allowed the industry, they haven't inhibited, energy production at all. And we heard this reiterated by Psaki later that day. She said, it was incumbent upon basically putting the onus on the administration or on oil and gas industry to step up their production, calling it a national crisis. And they say, the folks I spoke to said that was a little misguided. One executive called it death by 1,000 cuts. That's how he described the administration's policy towards them. While they haven't really outright came and, said they don't support drilling and whatever, their rhetoric and a lot of their kind of pro-regulation, climate change fighting agenda has really disincentivized, I think, a lot of companies from expanding their production. Obviously, things like the pandemic and other things have played a factor as well.
Sure, but there's been a lot of conflict between the industry and the administration over the green agenda, in effect.
Yes, absolutely. And basically, another official I spoke to, or former energy official I spoke to, was saying that they're just going to completely have to pivot the way that they approach the industry and the way that they, think about working with that sector and moving forward.
So now Russian oil is not necessarily a huge part of our energy needs, but there are European countries that would be more effective by these kinds of restrictions. Talk a little bit about the European response.
Yes. So actually it appeared at the beginning of this week that we were all going to go in lockstep with kind of a unified European-U.S. ban on Russian oil. That did not play out as expected. Obviously, Europe is heavily dependent on Russia for its energy needs. It imports about 40% of its total energy supply from Russia, whereas the U.S. gets about 9% roughly in a normal year. So that would have been pretty hard to accomplish in general. But later Tuesday, after Biden announced the outright ban, the UK announced similar plans. They said they plan to phase out they plan to phase out all Russian energy imports by the end of the year. And the EU, for its part, plans to phase out 2/3 of Russian energy imports by 2023.
And so while prices at the pump at home were a factor in why the Biden administration was a little reluctant to go this route, not putting pressure on European allies that are a little more dependent on Russian oil was a factor too.
Absolutely. Biden actually said that in his speech. He said that obviously, we're not all, we all have different kind of levels of dependence on these supplies, and we don't want to cripple the economy. Although he did warn American consumers there are going to be costs at home, and already we've seen sticker shock. Prices for the first time since 2008 have soared above $4, and analysts say that's only likely to increase in the months ahead.
Which could lead to some price at the polls as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you.
You can subscribe to the Daily on Energy newsletter at WashingtonExaminer.com.